I know a lot of you are probably familiar with our Comp Analyst, at the very least, our Comp Analyst market data products, as well as some of our broader software. If you haven't used or aren't familiar with our comp data surveys, this is another area of our business. Of course, this can all flow through the Comp Analyst platform if you're using our enterprise tools here. But comp data is essentially a specialized survey practice that we have in-house. So if you've used our Comp Analyst market data, you probably know that that data set is built on hundreds of surveys that we purchase from most of the major vendors, still completely HR reported data. Comp data are surveys that we actually run in-house. And we have a number of different industry specializations. This survey specifically focuses on the United States in areas like hospitality, manufacturing, distribution, healthcare, colleges and universities, so much more industry specific surveys. But we also do have our Benchmark Pro survey as well, which is kind of an overarching survey. So typical participation model. If you've used surveys in the past, organizations subscribe, they provide their data, and then in turn, you can see data from the entire group in aggregate. And this data set updates quarterly, and it gives you some advantages over more of an aggregate data set in some ways. One is that you have full visibility into the participant lists where the data is coming from. You can see every single organization that provides data. You also, especially if we think about areas like healthcare, colleges and universities, have the ability to filter data a little bit more specifically to that industry. So instead of just looking at company size, for example, or location or industry breakouts, these let you go deeper. So in healthcare, for example, we get into filters around like the number of beds in a hospital or a facility. Colleges and universities, we're looking at like enrollment counts, for example. So some more specialized data sets if that's something that you're interested in across the United States. So it's kind of our comp data survey practice in a nutshell. We try to make participation really easy. So if you're not subscribed to this today and see some value, please click the link in the chat. And we're always hungry to get participants for this data set too. So we'd love to have a conversation about it. But if we're looking at any one of these surveys here, again, you could always access this through the CompData kind of edge software. Again, if you're using Comp Analyst, you could access this all through one source there as well. And I just pull up our screen here. You can start to run reports like this, where we'll have, again, different jobs. I've run a report here for our manufacturing survey across the South and Midwest. And we could see a handful of jobs. We could see some high level data, looking at like our different percentiles, for example, looking at a little bit more information on things like commissions and tips, different pay structure data, things that you might not always get in more of an aggregate data set. And if I wanted to drill into a specific job, so like looking at our electronics assembler here, we could take a look at this position. You could see the underlying market data. We'll give you any cuts of data that we offer here as well around things like headcount, exemption status, profit status, different industry breakouts here. And we could see some of our roll-ups, bonus eligibility, for example. Just give you some much more specialized data within these areas. What we're adding within Comp Analyst Market Data Max is some of this AI assistance and access to some of our real-time job posting data, as we are with all of our Max products. There are versions of this Max tool across all of our subscriptions. So if you're subscribed to something else and are interested, just click the link in the chat and we can set you up with the right person to speak with. But basically what this will do, we have these kind of in-module AI agents. Across our tools, they'll do lots of different things. In this situation, it's going to take the context from the page. So the AI tool knows that we're looking at an electronics assembler. We could choose the market that we'd like to target here. In my case, if I wanted to look specifically at like California, we could see who the top companies are that are hiring. You could also look specifically at your peers. We wanted to define certain organizations that you compare against directly, and look at some other data points around things like skills that are pulling from job postings, just giving you more of a real-time snapshot of the market. And if I wanted to look at some of these top companies that are hiring here, in this case, this is a pretty broad search, but we could see like, hey, here are the top companies hiring for this assembler role. We're going out on a nightly basis and pulling as much data as we can from job postings, job boards, company career pages. So we're able to see, hey, here are the pay ranges that these companies are posting. We've used AI to analyze their job postings and make sure they're relevant fits for these roles. So we can get some additional context here to see, hey, here's what the survey data is saying for our given breakouts, but also here's what companies are actually posting in the market today. And then we'll also give you some AI summaries that go along with this to say, hey, we know this company seems to be posting the most for this role. However, they also mention X, Y, and Z in their description, which could explain it. We'll get into a lot more of the kind of reasoning and research behind it instantly, which is great. And this really serves two purposes. One is to kind of bridge the gap between the more foundational survey data and what your employees, what your recruiters, what your candidates are seeing online, and just give you more of that real-time check. And it's also built, again, to help just shed some light on more specific organizations that you might want to target here. So it gives us, again, some real-time context that we can use and also fill in gaps in the data. So with most surveys, sample sizes will vary naturally based off of the participation and what's been provided. This can be a great opportunity if there isn't data or if the sample sizes are low. Not the case for this specific job, but to just say, all right, well, let's see kind of a real-time check on the market. Let's get another data source and have something else to compare to. So this gives us a really quick way to search that data. So that's kind of one way we could use some of these Max features using our AI and our real-time posting data within the module. CompData Max also gives you access to the Salary IQ module itself. So in Salary IQ, some of you folks may be familiar with this. You may have seen it. This is our module that's dedicated specifically to going deep on job posting data. And as part of the CompData suite, we have built out industries that match the different industries that we run within our CompData surveys. We can see the top jobs. In this case, we've pre-created a manufacturing grouping. So we could run a manufacturing report, seeing some high-level data here. We have a lot of organizations that we pulled into this group. We can also filter these organizations to say, hey, just show me what the participants in the CompData survey are posting. So we could get kind of a direct comparison between what folks are providing in their survey submissions, as well as what are they posting publicly right now. So it gives us a nice comparison there. This is a pretty big peer group, so this one's going to load up for us in a few minutes. Usually goes a little faster. We've just been bouncing between sites. But we could see, again, already some of the top jobs, and we could start to narrow down by things like location, getting extremely specific, which we'll touch on. But if I wanted to back out, if we wanted to run more of a targeted search in this tool, I'll take like a warehouse job, for example, run a quick search on our warehouse type positions. The system can either just do a keyword search for live job postings as of right now, or it can also say, hey, we have this warehouse worker 2 job profile that most of these postings seem to match against. Would you rather search using this job description? And this can be really helpful because it can help to capture other titles that you might not necessarily search on. Doesn't have to be an exact title match. Instead of warehouse associate, it could be like packing technician or anything like that you wanted to use. Basically, it's just pulling back any relevant job based on the description. It's also great for more niche roles where there might not be a ton of data. We always kind of joke about the cheesemaker position on our side, not a survey benchmark job. But if you were to search cheesemaker in this tool, you'd likely pull back a fair amount of data. So great place to kind of fill in the gaps. I'm just running a nationwide search on the warehouse associate role as a quick example to start with here. If you wanted to target specific companies, you could do that too. Again, this is anybody that posts data, so they don't have to be participants in our survey. We're seeing kind of our national picture where Home Depot, Best Buy, PepsiCo seem to be the top companies hiring for these roles. Here's what they're posting. We could also switch this if we wanted to look at hourly rates instead of annual. You could see some pay trends as well. And then we could narrow down if we wanted to see, hey, let's see what this looks like in a given market. Let's get very, very detailed with our different geographic breakouts, not just down to the city, but down to the sub-metro locations. And then also being able to look at the actual postings themselves, if we preferred to as well. So saying like for PepsiCo, here are the jobs that are being posted right now. You could see we've got like inventory counter that doesn't have warehouse in the title, but our AI tool still pulled it in anyway. And we could look at the postings themselves to make sure it's a really good fit. Um, Lots of other filters we could apply here. We can go back in time. You can build out custom peer groups within this if you want to target certain companies. We could talk about this area of the tool for a lot longer. But as you can see with CompData Max, we're bringing kind of a new layer of data onto just sort of the traditional benchmark surveying.